As some of you already know, I was ordained as a deacon and then as a priest when I had almost reached the mandatory retirement age for Episcopal clergy. Because of my ministry's unusual beginning, I presume that it will not be a shock if I say things that might not sound like a seminary-approved concept. However, I suspect that many of us have ideas, beliefs, and opinions that we choose not to have examined too closely by the church. I was baptized when I was a senior at Cal, and I joined St. Luke's when I moved to Los Gatos 63 years ago. I was ordained after I retired from my career as a college dean, and I am, I suppose, still in training. That's to offer some reasons for any unorthodox comments. And Bill is smiling at me, so I feel okay. I greatly value this community and the Anglican Communion as a haven of grace and love and worship. But I believe that it is not heresy to see the beauty and truth of other ways of giving thanks and worshiping the Creator. I'm referring mostly to the fact that throughout the course of human history, people have been experiencing ideas, events, dreams that don't quite fit orthodoxy. And I know a few of you well enough to know I'm not alone here this morning in being one of those. That there is a strong creative power in the universe feels like the truth. And I admit that I don't know exactly what it is. But I am grateful for it and revere it, and I value and revere the patterns that different cultures have found or developed to honor and live in those beliefs. And I give thanks especially for the cultures that have worshiped and developed our Christian beliefs and history. It is my chosen set of answers. That said, I want to tell you this morning about the journey Joe and I have just completed. We were away from Los Gatos about 2 weeks. On several occasions, we visited places that I can only call holy. Some were creeks, some were canyons, some were remnants of human occupation, some were vast distances, some were small spaces, some were memories. Every one of those experiences is special and yet common. We may all find beauty, which is an image of holiness, and peace, which is the environment of grace, and hope, which is like finding new places that feel like home, and being fully alive and aware in our miraculous world. Our first night out in our van camper was spent in a campground in the Sierras, north of Lake Tahoe. There was evidence of logging in the area, and close to our campsite was a slice of a downed tree. It was about 15 inches long, and out of its side grew a green sprout. We brought it home with us. That tree is still offering a couple of green branches, and there is no sign that this tree knows that it has been cut down. Then near Moab, Utah, in the National Park Arches, where there are miles of desert walls and cliffs of golden and rose-colored rock, and throughout the area dozens of openings in the rock arches across the dry sand. And years ago, near the main campground in the park, Joe and I came across a small arched enclosed space, a perfect natural chapel. On our visits, we have more than once used the space as such. This time, and I can't really blame any changes in the rocks, I found it more of a challenge to climb into that area. But I fondly recall the times we recited a psalm there or praised and gave thanks for the natural beauty of the site. And then in northern Colorado, just south of Grand Junction, we found ourselves in unknown and unexpected territory. I had missed some turnoff, apparently. We knew we wanted to go south toward Mesa Verde, but we found ourselves in an unfamiliar mountain road. A gas station attendant in a tiny town assured us that we were on the road that would reach the highway we wanted, though a bit slower than the main road. So on we went. We climbed for over 2 hours, passed a 10,000-foot marker, and eventually did reach the major southbound highway. Our mystery detour proved to offer fabulous mountain beauty, rugged rocks, patches of snow, a deep canyon with a glacial blue river, a pristine aspen forest, and just one other vehicle during 2 hours of our drive. I was enormously grateful for my earlier gas purchase. We emerged just north of Montrose, where my father grew up. Because it's Father's Day, I'll tell you a little anecdote about my father. He grew up in Montrose, Colorado, the oldest of 4. In high school, he studied 4 years of Latin. He played football, and at her invitation, he once took his Latin teacher to a dance. He took her to another town, of course. He wasn't able to take her in Montrose. They had a wonderful evening. I think she was 21 and he was 17. This may be the first allusion to it in public for about 90 years. But I confess for him now that he took his teacher to a dance. This was before the First World War. I guess the best thing for him that night was that he got to drive her car. But who knows what boys do. This was all before the First World War. Joe and I then crossed western Colorado from north to south along what was once known as the $1 Million Highway. It was supposed to have cost that much to build it, and my grandfather was one of the people who worked on it. The pass took us to 12,000 feet, waterfalls round bend after bend, a study in contrast. We again walked through a couple of the vast and intricate buildings of Mesa Verde, slowly crumbling deep in the canyon, caves and crevices of that mesa. The high desert weather was beautiful, the visitors not overwhelmingly numerous, and the memories long. We visited the site on the edge of a canyon where a couple of decades ago we scattered the ashes of a dear friend who had chosen that site as her memorial. One of our final stops was at the volcanic mountain campground north of Flagstaff. We had a reservation for a site we'd stayed in 5 or 6 previous times. The first time was on our way home from the Episcopal Church's General Convention in Phoenix in the early 1990s. The area was damaged by fire a few years ago, but is now recovering. It's a visible miracle to see how what a few years ago was black with the death of wildfire is now renewing, green limb by green limb. And we recalled with delight that on our visit last year, the evening's campfire talk involved 2 camels who had been walked in by their owner. I had never expected to pet a camel's nose, and somehow their presence seemed almost biblical. I confess we didn't enter a single church on our trip, yet every one of these experiences seems holy. We all have places and ways to find images of holiness. We all can feel the peace of certain places and sites. I encourage you to remember that the world is holy. You are with God everywhere. You can be in a place of worship wherever you are. But one of the joys of our tradition is to be in a sanctified place, made holy by time and silently filled with generations of our predecessors, known or unknown. A place like this one, which I first entered in 1961. And it's a blessing today to be with you. Amen.